panelists today, Dr. Aisha Hassan, and we have Maulid Hujali here. Unfortunately, Dalma is unable to join in this discussion today, but I believe we will still have a fruitful conversation. So I'm very happy to welcome our guests, and I would like to really start off by Aisha and Maulid by introducing themselves before we get into the panelist discussion. And I have a few questions today to ask you guys. So Aisha, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sorry, I was struggling to find a button to unmute myself. Well, basically, just to give you a bit of background about me, professionally, I'm an immunologist. My portfolio includes things such as working on vaccine-preventable disease campaigns, vaccine strategy implementation, emergency relief work, and senior program management in the Horn of Africa. To date, where I'm currently working at the National Institute of Health Research, where I'm primarily responsible for managing the delivery of funding streams and funding programs that accelerate the translation of medtech and digital health innovations into the NHS and the wider market. So I think that more or less summarizes it academically. Outside of work, I have an organization. I co-founded an organization called the Fail Forward Hub. It is a multidisciplinary NGO, and basically the aim of this organization is to bridge the gap between Black and ethnic minorities to the mainstream, especially when it comes to opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Maulid?
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. My name is Maulid Hujali. I am a Somali journalist, mainly covering humanitarian news and analysis in the Horn of Africa. I've been involved in the field of media and specifically humanitarian communication for almost 10 years now. Most of my work involves refugees, displaced people, and I also do digital storytelling recently, and I've done a documentary as well. So I'm transitioning into broadcast journalism now from online journalism. So I've been doing a bit of both. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, guys. So as you guys all know that we've been hit with COVID-19 this year. So we know that some of you guys have been struggling potentially with finding new roles after graduation, and some of you guys are probably thinking, what's next for me? So in this panelist discussion, we'll be discussing a range of things, but I would like to start off with my first question of the morning is, this question's for you, Aisha. It'd be great to understand how did you land the career that you're in, and would you say from your perspective that you've achieved success, or do you feel like there's so much you can do, or there's so many things that you're looking forward to doing this year?
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that question. And of course, again, thank you for having me on this panel today. If I was to just jump right into the question itself, I think it is essential that we individually explore and acknowledge actually what success means to us. I mean, for one person, it could be something as having a startup company that, I don't know, goes on to become a unicorn business. But then for the other person, success could be defined as having a very big family. Now, our understanding and definitions of success varies greatly. And so the path towards your goal will consequently differ on a fundamental level. Therefore, I always have this habit of making sure that I reiterate that success is a very personal thing. And so you have to approach it with the obligatory individuality that it requires. Now, personally speaking, success for me, it means working in a field or the sector that I thoroughly enjoy, but it also means understanding that I have a responsibility and a duty to give back to the world. I mean, the latter in particular, I found was a crucial element to my feeling of, say, having achieved this success. I mean, on the one hand, if we were to speak academically, my journey initially began with an undergraduate degree in biomedical sciences. Now, I particularly chose this course because it enabled me to explore a range of life sciences without actually having to commit to a single one of them. And not to digress too much, but I truly fell in love, say, with research, which is my profession, during my dissertation project, where I had the opportunity to develop and validate an realized I was investigating different dietary antigens at the time. And this particular project was only 4 weeks, but it was an experience that really enabled me to find the career that I wanted to pursue. And so continuing on to complete a master of research and a PhD in immunology, for me, it was something that was inevitable in that sense. But I do have to point out, though, that for some careers, especially with mine, certain qualifications are mandatory. Therefore, I would say that I took a very traditional route to say, like, finding myself within this sector. But then on the other hand as well, like I had mentioned earlier, for me, success is a very personal thing. And it does mean understanding the responsibility that I had towards my community. I mean, my view, like generally my view is that nobody makes it through life, say, successfully entirely on their own merit. I mean, even if the assistance at the time is not obvious, somewhere along your journey to success, I mean, I don't know, someone gave you an opportunity, someone inspired you, maybe that person mentored you, etc. But my favorite one, though, is like, you know, and which we tend to forget as well, is that somewhere along your journey, there was this one person who believed in you, one person that saw greatness in you. And that in itself ought to be more than enough reason to feel a responsibility towards your community. So for me, when it came to things such as success and fulfilling that need to feeling like I had achieved the level of success that I wanted, that went hand in hand with like, you know, co-founding this organization that I have, the Fail Forward Hub. And as I mentioned before, this organization, it aims to bridge the gap between Black and ethnic minorities to the mainstream, but especially when it comes to opportunities. And for me, like as a part of success, it was important to use the small pieces of success that I had achieved in my life, whether that's academically or like, you know, privately, to use that to bring and influence transformational change that not only protects, but also benefits my community. So I'd say it's like a bit of both worlds. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that's amazing. And really interesting that you say that there's always someone that inspires you. And I know you come from a family of successful people. Would you say that your family have inspired you, pushed you to, you know, just be where you are today?
I think just statistically speaking, if you do have educated parents, the chance of you becoming educated is highly likely, and we should never underestimate the protective effects of being born into an academic family. However, while that provided me with, so to say, like a foundation that would, I would say, protect me even if I made less than optimal life choices, so to say. But then at the same time, I think for me, there have been individuals that, like, you know, whether it was during my school years, whether it was during my studies, there have been individuals that have come across where, I don't know, like as I mentioned before, people that see that greatness in you. And it's those individuals that actually enabled me to see beyond my circumstances.
Yeah, that's right. And I think for many of us, I know that's for me as well, there's always you have mentors or people you meet in life that, you know, shape the person you are today. And it's great that we see that early on. And you, just going back to your earlier point where you said that you sort of took the traditional route because you need specific qualifications to get where you are. Would you say that early on when you started your degree, or early on maybe in secondary school, that you had a love for science, life sciences?
Oh yes, absolutely. I think I was 8 years old when I told my mom, ik wil een wetenschapper worden, which is Dutch for I want to be a scientist. So for me, it was something that was always innate to me, wanting to be a scientist. But then that also goes hand in hand with the things that I was exposed to from a very early age, where, say, going to visit, say, a hospital with my, like, you know, with my mum would be working there, or going to my dad's office, things like that actually have a massive influence into, like, say, the preferences that you have in life later on. So for me, choosing the sciences, especially, like, you know, coming from a Somali family, that science is a big field to kind of push your kids into. So yeah.
That's amazing, and I really hope that you guys on the call today really find something that you like growing up, and you know that develops as you grow older. And it would be great to hear from you, Molid, if how you landed the career that you're in, and what success means to you. Do you feel like you've achieved success? Do you feel like there's more to give? But yeah, it'd be great to hear more this answer from you.
Thank you, Mariam, for the question. I think my journey into the journalism world started from a refugee camp, and it started through advocacy because it was more. I wasn't planning to be a journalist when I started writing because it was to do more speaking up for my community. I was in a very difficult condition, displacement, unable to move out of the camp in Kenya, for example, and I had I was a member of the youth committee in the camp that were trying to help the community bridge the gap between the agencies and the refugees. And through my advocacy, I ended up doing community journalism. I started a refugee youth-led magazine where we used to write stories about the refugees and the challenges they're facing, as well as the achievements they've made. And out of that, I became interested in journalism. And even from my high school, I remember I had a passion, but it wasn't a career for me. If I'm being honest, I didn't have a journalist or a well known journalist that I used to look forward to. It was just an interest in the media. So we used to do some kind of practice in the school. But then after high school, after I started involved in the community journalism and the magazine, the youth magazine that we started, I have seen the impact because when these big organizations realized our potential and our reach and our voice, they called us into meetings and we started getting recognition. And from there, I felt like, come on, so whatever we're doing is making sense, it's reaching somewhere. And the way the industry, the humanitarian industry system works is they like to keep things indoors. They don't like the bosses or the other world to hear whatever is happening inside the institution or inside the camps that they manage. So when they saw us trying to reach outside the world, they brought us into the table. In some way, it's political. They try to incorporate you, put you in their system, be part of them, and then forget speaking up for your community. It was very tricky to navigate the political agenda behind them inviting us to their big tables. So began. It was through speaking up for the community, through advocacy, but then finally I started pitching stories to international media. Even before I got professional training, I didn't have the luxury or the privilege to go to a university. So when I started writing, and I didn't even have a degree in journalism, so it just started from teaching myself, doing research, trying to read articles, and then that's how I developed the interest and started going for university or college. And yeah, that's how I became.
That's amazing. I didn't know that that latter part, so that's really interesting to know. So would you say that the Somali community has, you know, supported and aided you into getting into journalism and pushed you into, you know, making this a career for yourself? If through your advocacy and really just, you know, being a spokesman for the community, do you feel like they have supported you in this?
Definitely, yes. They supported me. I had a lot of friends that I met through social media, and also the community that I lived with also supported me a lot, more than anyone, because they gave me that responsibility and that support that you need when you take the liberty to speak up for your community. If you don't have them behind your back, then you will lose track. So I think that meant really a lot. It boosted our moral, our confidence, and also the other people that I've connected with through social media. Of course, the encouragement and their support, moral support, have really helped a lot.
Well, that's amazing. And what advice would you give people today who wanted to set off in a similar direction to you in the journalism field, or, you know, just being more being an advocate in the community, what advice would you give them?
I think I would say if anyone is interested in becoming a journalist or get into the media, I think it's easier now than it has ever been, because you don't have to have a degree in journalism to be in the media, because most of these well-established journalists that we see have had different careers in their beginning, and now they are highly respected in their field. Of course, you need to have the foundation and the ethical knowledge and the laws that govern whatever you're doing, so that you don't end up in trouble. But I think because of the digital world that we are in, and because of the social media, everyone is a journalist now. The difference is the platform that you have and where you get your stories out. But if you are a graduate or a student and you have a passion for media, I think the first thing you would do is just make use of your smartphone. Even the academia, I mean, in universities, they are now trying to teach students how to use smartphones, how to be. I remember when I was doing my master's in Kingston University, there was a lot of emphasis into digital media and how you can fit and compete with citizen journalism, because you have people who have been in the industry for 20 years, for 30 years, working for the BBC or Al Jazeera, and they're trying to keep up with young journalists who are now in the field, who have not had that experience, but they have the courage, they have the technology, and they're also on the ground trying to tell unfiltered stories and news from the ground. And that's what people need now. They need that organic news that is not being filtered, that is not being released through an international media has a different agenda that is known or unknown. So if you have the ability to go out and tell original stories, use your own social media, Twitter, and tag all these people that you want to put your message across, I think that is how you get recognition and use your voice and capacity to challenge the narrative. I think that's what I would tell anyone who
I think that's a really valid point. I know today we live in such a digital age that you can pick up your smartphone, you go on your social medias and start talking about what you want to talk about. So I think that's a great piece of advice. I know for my industry, in the technology industry, I never thought I would get into this industry. My background is a business of economics, so strangely enough, I didn't actually know what career I wanted to get into, but I had a passion for tech and interested in coding early on, but I didn't want to go into a tech savvy role. So my role is around, talking to clients and, creating a strategy for customers. So I think whatever your strengths lie, I think definitely that's a good place to start. And there's always opportunities that lie everywhere. And I know for Aisha, for you, you did say you've taken a more traditional route, but what would your piece of advice be for someone who wanted to go into sciences, working research, obviously just taking into consideration the education part, but more of who can they interact with, what pieces of information could they read to get interested in a similar field?
I think at the moment it's slightly different, considering the pandemic and the crisis that's ongoing now. However, when it comes to the sciences, what I've realized is there's something that a lot of students are not aware of is, did you know that you could quite literally email any, research lab that you're interested in and ask them if you could perhaps do a free, 2 to 3 week work experience with them, and they'd be very happy to take you on. I mean, in the past, I know that I have done that, as in taking someone on who literally just wanted to see what the field of immunology was about and kind of gain a little bit of insight into what the lab works like, etc. But I would genuinely say, get as much experience as you can. yes, in certain professions, the qualifications are mandatory, but experience is golden, and try to get as much of it as possible.
Yeah, so I'm definitely a fan of the whole work shadowing thing. Growing up in going through A levels, I did the same thing, shadowing people. I invited a person who set up his own company to my school to speak. So those little things, reaching out to people. They have blogs these days, they have Twitter, you can find them literally anywhere. And I know in your field of work, you can really easily find the email addresses of researchers and scientists. So that's really a great piece of advice. Now, just actually going into this might link quite nicely to our next question, where given the current environment, COVID and the whole Black Lives Matter movement, as a Muslim person of color, do you face different challenges, difficult challenges in the workplace that have made it difficult for you to access more work opportunities, resources, etc.? Do you have, I know this is a fear for many going into a new age, and especially after this movement, do you think, have you faced any of these challenges in the workplace?
I think, firstly, it's very, it's essential to get some things, some things clarified. I know that we are people of color, but the bottom line is we are Black. And that is just a very important distinction, something very important to distinguish. I mean, we all do face challenges in life, some more than others. But this is the one part in life that is guaranteed. I mean, whether it's a financial emergency, a health crisis, a family death, I don't know, a workplace change. The thing is, life is tough, and it will be filled with many unexpected and difficult challenges to overcome. But on the other hand, speaking from personal experiences, when it comes to challenges I faced throughout my career, in research especially, I mean, I feel like the old saying, numbers don't lie, capture it really well. As a Black woman who wants to pursue a career in academia, for me, it was really important to analyze and assess the data that was published by the Higher Education Statistics Agency. Now, I don't know how many people actually know this, but did you know that out of the 21,000 academic staff that are at professor level here in the UK alone, did you know that out of that 21,000, 18,000, or well, 85% of them identify themselves as white, just over 1,300 are Asian, and just over 2,000 are other ethnic backgrounds. So when it comes to the Black professors, we have less than 1%, or around 140. And it's very important to put this into context, because that's 140 Black professors out of 21,000. This will then, of course, influence the number of Black students that are awarded funded PhD studentships, the number of Black individuals that are awarded postdoctoral research fellow positions, and the actual research on Black communities that is conducted. Because just in case we forget, research is actually driven by interest, and this interest isn't necessarily representative of marginalized groups. And for me, as opposed to saying, oh, these are the exact difficulties that I experienced within my career, for me, these figures were the biggest, challenge to overcome, because it was very disappointing. But then at the same time, they were also something that really motivated me to pursue my chosen career path. And to paraphrase, I don't know if you know Dr. Marion Wright. She's the woman who said, you can't be what you can't see, because ultimately representation does matter. And not to digress too much, but for me, overcoming challenges in life, especially within my career, they were always fueled by the more significant cause that by visibly being me in this sector, other young adults from Black communities can also then see themselves.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything you're saying. And as a Black woman, and especially in sciences, and just being a woman alone in sciences is difficult. And there is, the statistics for that is greatly different to male counterparts. So I really appreciate you actually recognizing that. For you, Molid, what would you say the challenges have been for you to access different opportunities, you know, you've worked with various different platforms, so the BBC, Al Jazeera. How difficult has it been to access those opportunities? Or, you know, luckily we do have BBC Somalia that I know both of you have been a part of, but how have you been able to access these opportunities, and do you feel like it has been difficult, or the challenges, have there been any challenges?
Yes, there have been a lot of challenges, because like in any industry, if you are Black, you always have a lot of hurdles to like get over. And in journalism, it's not different. In the media sector, you know, all these big corporations, big media are being run by non-Black people, and they always favor their own, especially when you're freelancing. It's more difficult because you'll find so many talented journalists in Africa, in West Africa, Somalia, everywhere in the continent, trying to get access and tell stories from their own communities. For example, there's elections going on in Ghana, West Africa. You see someone, a white journalist, sponsored all the way from Boston, traveling with all expenses being paid, and going to that to Accra, for example, and he will employ an established local journalist, and that local journalist would do all the story, all the hard work, because he knows the culture, the context, and everything. And the name of that story, whether if it is written or broadcasted, it goes in the name of that white guy, and this journalist in Ghana, for example, would just be reduced as a fixer, or someone like who just interpreter, when in fact he's done everything by himself. And that is because this white guy has all the connections in life that he needs. He's surrounded by people who look like him. On the ground, the people who facilitate maybe his access to the country, and if it is the visa processing, or another white organization based in Accra. It's just an example. There's nothing happened in Accra, but that's what happens normally. And so it's difficult. That's what Black journalists face in every aspect of their career. And I think for me, it has never been it has never been different. It's been the same. I always feel that there are so many opportunities that I would get, but I miss because of my color. Some of them you would know, some of them you would never know. Even maybe with your own organizations that you think are really, even in the humanitarian sector, that I feel are the ones to lead this kind of advocacy and equality themselves also certainly promoting. I worked in London, for example, with an organization in the press department. It's one of the most respected organizations, but I was really shocked to see like all of them are white, and I was the only one. There was one Black woman who was in the reception, and the rest of the team were, and I was just an intern there. And this organization is like one of the highly reputable organizations in the humanitarian industry. So it's in everywhere, whether it's in the humanitarian or in media or in journalism. But I think what we need to do is to be aggressive in whatever we're trying to do. Do not take no for an answer. Speak up for ourselves, and you know, because of this has been a systemic thing that has been going on for a long time. We're made to believe that we are incapable of doing whatever we could. So we have that mentality where even if we try, we feel like, no, this person knows better than you. When in fact, this white person depends on you to get their information. Credit goes to all these white men who are trying to help change the system and who know what they're doing. But what we're talking about is this institutionalized racism that is sometimes obvious and other times, many times subtle. But what we need to do is just to be fearless, to hold our position, to challenge the system, and to show them that we know what we're doing and we're capable.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think as Black Muslim people, we have so much more to offer, different perspectives, and I know for me, I am one of 10 Black people in the organization of 500 employees. I'm the only Muslim woman in my company as well. So, but I think people see that and they think, okay, wow, she is the only Black Muslim woman. So there's also some opportunities that come your way for that reason. So don't want to be too negative, but I know there's challenges, but there's so many ways of that we can overcome them, and you guys are obviously credit to that. So if you could give any advice to someone who potentially looking for a job and they do some research and they realize that this company doesn't have many Black people, doesn't have any people of color, what do you think, if there is any key questions they should be asking when deciding, okay, what roles I should go for? What kind of questions do you think they should be asking? I direct that to anyone who wants to take that on.
Aisha, can you please take this?
Yeah, sure, of course. There was something actually, we ran a workshop last week, and it was with Nasra Ismail. Don't know if you know her. She was the previous director of the NGO consortium. And one advice that she gave all of us was pick the boss before you pick the job. And that has stuck with me. And personally, for me, like when it comes to choosing the career, like, the position that I want, I look at the company's framework, especially when it comes to equality, diversity, and inclusivity. I look at what opportunities are available. I mean, there are some companies, of course, that are very old and they are set in their ways, where it is very difficult to change, and that you just being there has sufficient impact, so to say. But for me personally, the one thing that I do ask is, what opportunities do I have to be developed? What is your equality, like EDI framework like? And who will I be working with? I mean, those are really important things to just inquire about.
Yeah, definitely. Your immediate manager, your colleagues, those are the people you're going to be working with on a daily basis. But like you said, knowing the diversity and inclusivity program is also good to know. But typically in interviews, I think everyone gets a good sense of the person that they're going to be working with and the manager that they're going to work with. If it's going to be a difficult manager, if they're a bit funny, those typically come up early in the interview stage. Molly, do you have, would you agree with Aisha on those areas of questions to ask?
I'm sorry if you can rephrase that question for me, because I'm trying to connect my charger, and that's why I forwarded the question to Aisha.
No worries. So just saying, do you have any advice for anyone looking to apply for a job, and like what questions should they be asking just so they feel more comfortable for going for that role, feeling like they're going to be a part of feel included in that workplace? What sort of questions do you think they should be asking in the interview stage, or do you think they shouldn't ask any questions and they should just do their research beforehand? It'd be good to get your view on that.
Definitely, I think it's very important for you to do your research and to understand the workplace, the culture of the organization that you're trying to join. And not because you want to understand how they work, but that I think it's something that would help you prepare for your interview better. And it will also give you an understanding of what kind of questions beyond the traditional normal questions that you would expect. And it shouldn't stop you from trying, because if you feel like this organization, for example, is not welcoming, or it has systemic inequality in its workforce, I think you could still try, and maybe you never know, you could be you could pave the way for many more, and join that organization and help change the system from that. So I would say, even if you feel like it's not going to harm you to try and submit your application and face and if anything, you learn a lot, and then come back and use that experience to maybe educate others, and it also prepare you to face if you happen to join another organization with the same culture.
Yeah, I agree. I think even
Can I just add a point there as well? Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, even like, you know, when it comes to writing your CVs, what I've noticed is, especially with my students, they'll write their CVs, but when it comes to things that they're passionate about or activities that they're involved in, when it comes to outreach work that they do for BAME communities, they somehow leave them out. And I've always questioned that, where when it comes to my CV, the first thing that you see is, yes, you'll have all of these, like, you know, academic qualifications, but you very much know what I'm passionate about. And I think like a lot of students miss out on that. They feel like they shouldn't share that with their potential employer, but it's important that you do.
No, it's important to show your personality, and really it makes a difference, especially someone as person of color, Black, we're Muslim. You know, it's everyone will have a great educational background, but your personality will stand out and shine. So I agree, and that's probably another piece of advice to give people here, that on your CVs, make sure that you're as personable as possible, and in your interviews really share with them that you are passionate about areas, loads of things that you're passionate about, essentially. I'm just going, Molly, go on.
Yeah, I just want to go back to Aisha's point on the staggering figures that you've given us. It was still lingering in my mind. It's really shocking. I didn't know until now, and I had a vague idea of the representation, but what you've just given us is really shocking figures. So, in your organization, are you doing anything about that? Are you planning to? You could have been doing, but can you enlighten us if there's any programs or what we can do to help?
Yes, absolutely. So with the Purple Hub, one of the first things that we've actually done is, because we've got close relationships with Aston University, so the director there for Center for Research in Ethnic Minority, we've established, like, you know, we've done programs together. We actually have our students, we develop our students to enable them to gain the best opportunities, especially when it comes to academia and research. I don't know if you saw as well, we took part in the refugee entrepreneurship event that they had at Aston University, which is like a very big annual event they have. But it's things like that, establishing those bridges with academics in high positions, which then enables us to share our contacts with our mentees. Hence why last week, the webinar that we had, it was called Access to Leaders. My point is, yes, over the span of my career, I've gotten to know all of these amazing people, but it took me so long to get to know them. I don't want that, and these individuals have opened doors for me. I don't want that to be the same issue for the next generation. I want them to be able to feel important and know that these established leaders are accessible to them. So those are the things that we work on.
That's amazing, and I think actually it makes a difference. And I actually caught up on your webinar last week, and it was actually really great to see all those people talking about various different things. I just wanted to go back to just obviously the whole COVID-19 situation that's been happening, and students obviously for like 5 months of the year have been potentially doing their exams from home. A lot of them won't be having a graduation this year, which is actually very sad. But I hope you guys managed to figure out to still take your graduation pictures. So I hope you managed to do that. But what piece of advice would you give them during this sort of lockdown period? For many of us still, what could they be doing? How could they be enhancing their CV, their visibility potentially on social media to maybe get the job that they want, or a lot of times maybe paid internships might not be an option anymore because of the situation, potentially going into a recession. What could students be doing, graduates be doing in this period over the summer and going into the end of this year? Molly, do you have a answer to that?
I was just typing. My connection is unstable, so maybe I missed the last bit of what you.
Okay, no worries. I'm just asking, what piece of advice would you give students and graduates during this lockdown COVID-19 situation? What could they be doing to be enhancing their CV, themselves, their visibility, so that they could potentially land the job that the career that they want, or, you know, I don't know, figure out what they want to do after the lockdown is over, essentially?
It's really very difficult time and very difficult question to answer, to be honest with you, because it's unprecedented what we're experiencing now. Even big rich governments like the UK government is confused. You see what's happening in the United States, how the governments and big institutions are polarized by this pandemic, because it's something that the world has never seen before. So first of all, I think we have to acknowledge that we are in a very difficult situation. But for us, students, graduates who are trying to navigate this complex system, I think what you need to do is just to make use of the technology that's available. The world has, I think, is learning new ways of doing things. Even those big tech companies that were leading the world in terms of technology, they're trying to they're realizing new things and new ways of doing things. So like Aisha was saying, just write emails to prospective employers. Don't be shy to tell you what you have been doing, not just your qualifications, but the 4 years that you've been learning. There are other things that you have been doing. What they're interested is whether you're capable of transferring those academic studies into practical work. So the little things that you've been involved, the Somali society are doing great things. I was telling them what they, for example, the small events that you're doing means a lot. That is what you will do in a normal organization. You plan, you call, you manage events. For example, the student union, the Somali students, they run very successful fundraising events. Those are really important practically in any organization. So if you include that in your organization, if you are passionate about what you've been doing, don't be shy to tell them in your CV, in your emails, in your whatever you're trying to do. Reach out to them and try to do research on the organizations that you're trying to join, what they're doing now during the COVID. They have ways of working, new ways of doing things. So try to understand and present yourself, knowing your capabilities and what you can bring to that organization. So I think just be part of the change that is going on. Don't just sit and feel like you're left out. Don't say 2020 is not counted. I think you need to write to them. Just don't be disappointed. That's all I would say.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think making use of all the avenues you have, like your social medias, telling people why you're passionate about the things that you do will always help. For me, I think some advice I would give to everyone is there's so many websites like Skillshare, Coursera that you could potentially do during this summer that you can find. You can learn a new skill, which is amazing. Also, maybe potentially get into mentoring. So now that you've you guys on the call. We've got some speakers that you could potentially go up to and ask questions, and who are probably willing to mentor some of you. So really just reach out to people that you feel like you will connect with. That would be my piece of advice. And lastly, if you are looking to apply for jobs, for me, I did apply to thousands of jobs during my last year of uni, and the only thing that was successful was actually going to a recruiter of the specific industry I wanted to work with, and they're professionals and they will find the best jobs for you. So I'd definitely look into recruitment agencies for specific industries. I know that there's health recruiters, there's technology recruiters, there's energy recruiters, so I would definitely utilize that. But overall, I think personality and passion shines, so definitely use your social media to really connect with people. And Aisha, do you have any advice that you would give to students and graduates?
Yes, actually, and this might sound a little bit harsh, but I am known to practice tough love. So I had a look, actually, because of my mentees and the students that I mentor. I regularly look at the job sites. There are barely any jobs out there, so it's very difficult to get a job. And the few vacancies that are available, it's not just everybody applying for it, but even those who are who have a lot of qualifications, a lot of experience in elite positions, even those individuals are applying for it. You need to bear in mind that a lot of individuals, I don't know what percentage it was, but a lot of individuals have been made redundant, whether that's in the public sector or smaller companies. So being wary of all of those things, my advice is you do not have time to be complacent about the situation. I don't know that I don't know how good your Somali is, but it's quite literally. You need to get up. You need to do these courses, as you said. I mean, right now for me, because I'm working from home, normally it would take me about an hour and a half to get to work and an hour and a half back. That is basically 3 hours of my day back. Bear in mind, I have all the qualifications that I need, but over the past month, I'm halfway through now doing my Prince 2 course. My point is, literally seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. You cannot, how do I put it, given the circumstances that we're in, you can't afford to just think, oh, I've only got this, that's it, I don't need any more. Go out there, improve yourself on a daily basis. As Mariam and Molid both said, try and do these courses, be proactive in your approaches, use your social media to connect with people, email them. Basically, you need to do them the absolute most, because these are unprecedented times.
Yeah, I think that's really an important thing to mention, actually, that jobs these days are, the competition is wild, just for 200, 400 applications for one job. So really, I think seeking knowledge, like you said, to the cradle to the grave is a good saying. I'm gonna roll with that one. But I think
can I just jump in here quickly as well, just to give some advice in terms of when I discovered this, I think really changed the game for me, applicant tracking systems. So basically, it's really important to beat the computer when you're sending your CV, because that's the person who's going to first scan it. So there's a website called JobScan that allows you to scan your CV and your cover letter, and it checks for keywords that are in the job description. So that way you can see how much of a match your CV and cover letter are to the job description. Because typically for the first few stages of the job application process, it's a computer that does the scanning before you actually meet anybody face to face. And I think once you're able to actually meet a human being and interview face to face, then your chances increase exponentially. And then also tip number 2, when you are job searching, stalk the company on LinkedIn, maybe figure out who is in the kind of department that you're applying for, who is in those roles. And then more often than not, that person does have a link, maybe not in your first circle on LinkedIn, but your second and your third. And just reach out to those people, which is something that I did. And then also use your university alumni networks, because a lot of these people, you may not have known them and they could have gone to school 20 years before you did, but I think there are always those biases that we have as human beings, where you're more likely or more willing to help someone or connect with someone because they relate to you and in some way. So that's also a tip that I used to use. And just be fearless and shameless about it as well. And don't, I think definitely as a woman and then as a Black woman as well, you give yourself so many reasons to not do something, but just do it. And if it's out there, honestly, the worst outcome is that they say no or you get no response. And if you don't, then so what?
Thank you. I think that's really important. I think even if they do say no, it's experience, and you can take that on your next role as well. Just to the final question before we go into a Q&A from the audience. What if you could give your younger self, so 23-year-old self, someone who's just graduated, what advice would you give them on landing the career that they want? Just maybe in a few sentences of just what would your overall advice be to someone, or to your younger self?
Mine would definitely have to be, and I'm sure that you guys have heard it many times, is get yourself a mentor. I will keep repeating it, get yourself a mentor, get yourself a mentor. It is so important to have one, especially early on in your career. My favorite analogies would be, if you didn't have a mentor, it's quite literally trying to construct a building without having the blueprints, or trying to put together a puzzle without seeing the picture. Yes, it's feasible in theory. However, it takes you so much longer with a lot more effort. When you have a mentor, you can actually save 2 to 5 years on your career progression. This, like me personally, I can right now say, hand on heart, if I had a mentor when I should have had one, I would have saved 2.5 years on my career. And that's a very long time, and these are valuable years that I've lost. But then the good thing is now I can tell others, make sure to get one as soon as possible. And the next thing then would be, how do I then get a mentor? Well, the best thing is, look around you. You need to ensure that this person is at the very least, I don't know, I'd say 10 to 15 years ahead of you in terms of career progression. They need to be able, and it's a give and take relationship. It's not a case of where, okay, I'm here, please, just get me this position. No, it's a give and take relationship. There are some things that you could actually teach your mentor simply because of the age gap and the different insights or perspectives that you might have on different things. So I would say, find someone who you think that you would be a good match with, work-wise, someone who is in that profession that you want to be in 10 to 15 years from now. And then quite literally, approach them, send them an email, ask them if they would be, if they would consider taking you on, taking you under their wing, if they could show you the ropes of the business and how things are done. But I'll just keep circling back to this, which is, if I for myself, if I could go back in time, I would have gotten a mentor when I was 19. I honestly would have done that.
I think that is really a valuable point, and then I agree. I know definitely in university institutions, they do have mentoring programs. So if you don't know about that, please look into your university if you're still there. But also that there are loads that you can find on the internet as well that will connect you with mentors in the industry that you want to get into. But I'm going to pose this question to you, Molly, before we go to our Q&A.
Thank you. I'll just say two things. One, I would emphasize the point Ayesha just made on the mentor, but I will add that if you get one, please make use of them wisely and effectively, because it's very hard to get one, and if you get one, it's very hard to retain them because people are really very busy. However much I would want to help you, but I want to help someone who I think is helping themselves. So the kind of questions you're trying to go to them, the way you're trying to use your knowledge, and if you just ask very trivial things that you think would waste their time, no one would want to continue with you. They will just politely say they're busy or something. So what you try to do is make sure you know what you're doing, where you want to be, and also you have to have a clear career path. You have to know your field and try to establish a line where you train yourself to be expert in that field. And then that person that is mentoring you, I think, would see that potential in you and will help you. So make your work easier make sure you prepare yourself before you approach them, and then that way I think it'll be easy for you to for them to help you. The second thing is when you know what you want to be, not just your qualifications, but the line that you want to take, the career that you want to build, what change that you want to bring, not just because you want to land on a job. It's maybe by luck you can get the job that you want just right after graduation, but it will never take you anywhere if you don't have that passion, that urge to use your career to make change. So if you develop that, I think the second thing you'd want to do is just try to actively reach out to all the organizations that you think are in your line of career through the LinkedIn, Twitter, and be part of the discussion. They have the organizations that you want to join have very active online discussions about the work they're doing. So be part of that. Try to join and add your voice, then let you be heard. So when they see you, I think sometimes they'll even look for you. They will definitely look for you. So that's the 2 points I would want to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maleed. I really appreciate both of you guys and just speaking about all these different areas. I'm going to now ask everyone if you guys have any questions for our speakers, please do ask them now. You can in the Zoom group chat, or you could, pop your mic on and ask us a question. But we will also be sending out this Zoom as a recording, so you guys can also look back at some of the things that we've said. But I would encourage you guys now to take some time and ask some questions for our speakers. I'll just give you a couple of minutes to think about some questions that you can ask us. Okay, so I'm just having a look at the chat, and I think, Ayan, you said, hi, is he on Twitter? I don't know who you're talking about, but Maleed and Aisha are both on Twitter, and I believe we did share that in the email originally, so you can find all our social medias there, but we will be sharing it again along with this recording. But yeah, please don't be shy. You're more than welcome all to ask any questions in the group chat as well. Just, I believe it's on the right.
I think in the spirit of making use of time until someone comments. Another thing that I actually wanted to add as well, which is advice I wish I had received growing up, especially through my career progression, was as Somalis, we do tend to work within our own communities. We don't tend to the majority of the times anyway, what I see is we don't tend to work from people from other communities and establish close working relationships with them or collaborate on projects. You don't see that very often. And so for me personally, I've always been like that, where I would only work within the Somali communities. But then it was in 2018 where I actually pushed myself, and I joined this organization called Common Purpose. Please do look them up on Twitter. They are amazing, especially their MBA Streetwise. And most of the time you can get that course, you can either apply for it and see whether you can get a bursary for it, but it's a 3-day intensive course that actually forces you, for me anyway, it was in very uncomfortable situations with people who quite literally could be from the other side, the other end of the world, who have different values, different cultures, just different in general. And I remember initially coming there, slightly apprehensive, slightly worried, but then after the 3 days going away and realizing, oh my God, there is so much potential in differences, and having these differences within even your immediate team, it's essential for innovation and progress. So I just wanted to share that because it's something that was personal to me that I had learned, and I thought I'd just pass it on.
Yeah, I agree with you, Aisha, and actually connecting with people that are outside of your community and working with them on projects is definitely important. And oh, we've got a question from Hanan. My question is, I want to get into coding, but the courses are very expensive. How can I learn it? Amazing. I've got the perfect website for you. It's called Free Code. Let me quickly find it. Free Code something, but let me Free Code Camp. And that is a great free website where you can learn back-end, front-end coding, HTTP, everything. So go there. If you have any questions, please message me and I can help you out with that. So thank you for asking that question. Let me see if there's...
I have a question as well. I guess one of my questions would be for both the speakers is in regards to the importance of risk and mistakes that you make within your career that have given you kind of big lessons. So I guess my question for the speakers are any mistakes or risks that you made that has given you the biggest lessons in terms of your career?
Sorry, when you say risks or and mistakes?
Or it can
mistakes.
be either or, yeah.
I think they can be of two.
Yeah.
Some mistakes can be, technical things where you might have messed up, like in my profession anyway, where you might have messed up on, I don't know, like a particular procedure that you had to carry out, or like, ordering different reagents, etc. But I do like to reiterate this, especially to my students, which is when it comes to mistakes, especially within the workplace, keep emotions out of it. You are contracted to do this job. I feel like sometimes it is easy, especially when something is very personal for us to get emotion, into it. But then at that same time, you also have to consider, that tough love approach where, for example, I am a Black woman, I'm visibly Muslim. So there have been occasions where I felt like someone at work, say for instance, was either very rude to me or, I might have done something wrong, etc. But I always have that at the back of my mind where I know how to conduct myself appropriately. So while I would say, of course, everybody has taken risks or mistakes within their profession. For me, the one thing that's always at the forefront is whatever mistakes I make, keep emotions out of it. That's something that I've always I preached.
Right, and I absolutely agree with that. I think even in myself, the reason why I was asking this was just kind of to highlight the importance of this, because oftentimes as a Muslim woman, you're very visible within that office, right? You're very any mistake that you make has like a microscope impact, right? So you have to be very cautious in terms of how you conduct yourself and your behavior and how it's seen to the outside in many ways. So
Absolutely.
Thank you for that question. So we've got another couple of questions. So we've got one from Bilal. He has said, what is a typical day for an immunologist and a journalist?
What's a typical day?
Yeah, what does a typical day look like for you? And obviously taking into mind COVID-19 for the last couple of months, has that changed?
It's difficult during the COVID. For me as a freelance, I think it has. If you are employed and you are reporting, for example, to an office to the BBC, for example, 9 to 5, definitely you. All of my colleagues who worked there were affected. But for me, because I wasn't reporting to any where I was a freelancer, I was just pitching ideas to different news organizations, and depending on which media outlet is interested in my story, then I would go out and do my work. For me, it was really challenging in terms of getting other stories that I need out, because there are many stories that were in line that I was supposed to do. They were all cancelled because of COVID-19. So I had to rethink whatever story that I was doing from the angle of COVID-19. So it wasn't easy from a freelancing point of view. Because I did a couple of stories about the impact of coronavirus in the Somalis in the UK and also in Somalia, but there's nothing much that I could do because personally there are so many stories that I was to do that were cancelled. So in relation to COVID-19, I think that's how I was impacted. But generally, typically, because most of my work focuses in Somalia and Kenya, typical day, if I was there, then it would be really busy, going out, doing interviews, and taking photos, challenging big people, and trying sometimes risking your life. But other than that, I think it is enjoyable when you see your story out making rounds on social media. Other people who are also the characters of your story being reached out by institutions, by governments. When you see the impact of your work, I think sometimes it's rewarding.
Thank you, Mali. That's really in depth. Thank you. Aisha, do you have anything for that question, and what a typical day looks like for you as a immunologist?
Without sharing too much, I feel like the current position that I'm at, honestly, because especially it's the National Institute of Health Research, and due to the crisis, our workload has been, quite, like, it has been substantial. So the majority of stuff that we've been involved in is repurposing immediate and long-term responses for COVID-19, managing a very large portfolio of research, and in a nutshell, I would just say, for us, normally our days would look a lot different, where I get to go out and visit the research programs that I'm managing, or I get to visit the particular university and help them with their research steering group meetings. So it's different bits and bobs there. But because of COVID-19, I have quite literally been glued to this laptop. And making sure that the paperwork aspect of the response to this crisis is dealt with.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what you're doing is actually amazing. So good luck with everything.
Thank you.
And I hope you're rewarded for all the things you're doing. We have a couple more questions. So we've got Ikram. She says she's 18 years old. She's particularly interested in public health and research, and was wondering how a mentor can help develop her career. How can I create a professional and helpful relationship with a mentor? So I think this one would be good for you to answer, Aisha.
So I can just have a look at the question. Okay, so when it comes to being interested in things such as public health, especially, and research as well, as I mentioned previously, there are many opportunities where you can actually work in these professions, whether it's as an internship or just as work experience. This is and this is what I would say the mentor actually comes in. Your mentor is able to provide you with these opportunities. I mean, me personally right now, I know a lot of people do ask me, oh, do you have time to have a mentor? And I say I am literally, I have enough mentees at the moment. But for instance, in my case, it would be a case of connecting you with, a PI that I know at a particular university where I think you would be a very good match, making the necessary introductions, helping you with your CV, making sure that that it's good, ensuring that you have the correct references. I mean, it's things like that where your mentor really enables you. I think that's the best, the best analogy for it. They enable you to get these positions, these opportunities, and just share their experiences with you. Now, in terms of how you can create and develop that professional relationship with a mentor, again, it does come down to the person that you select to be your mentor. I know that a lot of times people kind of put them in a position where they feel like the mentor has to agree to them, but you also have to understand this is a person who you are entrusting to guide you in your career, which is, of course, I'm assuming is a very important thing. So when it comes to creating those helpful relationships with a mentor, I think look for someone who's very passionate about developing others, but more specifically, someone who sees that greatness in you. I think the worst mistake someone can make when it comes to, especially like, mentors, is finding someone who has a more or less blah approach to things, where they tell you, okay, yeah, go ahead and do this and go ahead and do that. Whereas, say, someone like me, I very much believe, like, I remember, like, one of the first questions that I ask my mentees is, what do you want? And not a case of, what do you think you can get, but quite literally, what do you want? And we will use that as, like, the bar point, and we will try our absolute best to either reach that or be within that vicinity. So it's things like that that really make that difference. So yeah, it's a give and take relationship on both sides. And when it comes to finding mentors, I think if you go on Twitter as well, there are many Somali organizations, or, like, different organizations that you can just contact and look at the individuals that are signed on and just quite literally ask them, is there an opportunity to be mentored by someone? Yeah.
Great, thank you so much, Aisha, for answering that question. I think we also just have one last question before we'll end this lovely discussion. So we've got another question from Ayan. She said, is there a network for Somali journalists or people working in the media in Europe? She lives in Copenhagen, Denmark. She's a self-taught journalist, blogger, and a caster. She's saying that a network with Somali media people would be great. So I guess this one's for you, Molid.
Really, it's unfortunate that I haven't seen any in Europe, particularly in the UK, where so many Somali journalists. There are a union of Somali journalists, but most of them, I would say almost 100%, they are journalists that work in the Somali media only, and all their work is in Somalia. So there are no like regional European Somali journalists who work from different organizations in different parts of the world. And I think it's a challenge that we need to take on. And I happen to be one of their meetings once in a while because they don't have regular meetings. But I'll definitely bring this point to them, and it's something that I think we need to think about. But in Somalia, yes, there is the National Union of Somali Journalists. There are different other media house organizations within Somalia that you can reach out to if you ever happen to be in Somalia that you want to do something. There is also specifically a Somali Women Journalists Association that's led by Somali women in Somalia. They also have a representation in the UK. I'll be happy to connect you with them if you're interested.
Yeah, thank you, Molid. So Ayan, please reach out to Molid if you have any specific questions around that. And I believe now that's all our questions today. And I thank everyone for coming, and our esteemed panelists for coming here today and speaking with us. Really appreciate it. This is recorded, so we'll be sending it out to everyone. But I'm going to now give this over to Kule just to end this, and I just want to say my final thank yous to everyone for coming and joining today.
Yeah, so thank you guys all so much for joining. I really appreciate that. I think we had a pretty good turnout, especially for Saturday. So yeah, really grateful for to both of our panelists and the moderator. I think for all being quite vulnerable and sharing their experiences and giving very useful advice. We really do hope to have a few more resources in the coming months, so please do look out for that, and also for our next events. I think now we're just going to ask you guys to fill in a quick feedback survey, and yeah, I think I'll let everyone go unless Aisha and Molid have any kind of final words that they'd like to leave us with.
No, that's it from me.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly, absolutely. Thank you very much for inviting us here today. Also, Malu, thank you also for being on the panel with me. And yeah, thank you very much. And I look forward to your future events.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I think that's it for now.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.